Hello, good evening, and welcome to the American Business Television's In the Ring with Roy Foreman. I'm your host. Boxing has become a big business. If you've paid any attention this year, you know by now, of course, that Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather will be stepping into the ring come May 2nd. And they're expected to generate well over $300 million. But this evening, we're going to talk about the globalization of the sport. The Klitschko brothers from the Ukraine, Vladimir and Vladimir, that's their names. They are now considered to be the heavyweight champions of the world. Gennady Golovkin, another Ukraine fighter. He is considered pound for pound, perhaps behind Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, as one of the top fighters today. Kovalov, who is the light heavyweight champion of the world, another Ukrainian fighter as well, Russian-Ukrainian from the same region. These three alone, though not generating the numbers that Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao will on that particular night come May 2nd, but these three guys alone have globalized the sport of boxing. Now, the United States for years has held to this prominent spot, because most of our champions have been from the United States. You know, in the 80s and the 90s, we had the Sugar Ray Leonards, we had the Mike Tysons, we had the George Foremans, the Evander Holyfields. I mean, those guys were Americans. And the sport was big because for so many years it was considered, in order to be big, you had to be here in the United States. Well, things have changed. China now has gotten into the boxing game. There are fights held over in Macau that's generating millions of dollars. Thousands of viewers. And of course, as the United States being the small market that it is, in dollars generated, we may be the biggest. But from a population size, we're the smallest. So when we talk about 20,000 people here, they're talking 80,000 to 100,000 people to attendance over in that part of the country. China, once they jumped into the game, kind of changed the whole thing. There are live boxing matches being held. Zhu Ming Sing, I think is his name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, has become the darling of the sport over there in China now. The Chinese government has opened it up because everybody's understanding now what type of money that boxing brings in, the types of money, rather, that boxing brings in. The Klitschko brothers have dominated the sport of boxing for the last 10 years. They have generated millions of dollars themselves, though they've only fought here one time since winning the title. And that was back in 2003, when the younger Klitschko brother fought a then fighter at the time that was coming up by the name of Shannon Briggs. And Briggs, of course, didn't win the title, but he was considered the linear champion. But he was the last American, basically, at that time to fight for the world title. There's a young man by the name of Deontay Wilder that is considered to be one of the heavyweight champions of the world right now. He holds the WBC's interim belt, with one of the Klitschko brothers having semi-retired and gone into the politics of the world. But the younger brother is still upholding. And that big fight, should he win, continues to win, is being anticipated sometime in the fall of 2015. And that very well could, I don't think it'll generate the numbers that Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather will, but I think it could be it'll generate the interest. For the first time, come April 25th, a Klitschko brother will actually be defending his title in Madison Square Garden against Philadelphia's own Brian Jennings. That's expected to bring the interest of the world, but I don't think at the same time it's going to generate anywhere what this particular fight will. Now, Golovkin is another story. This guy is considered in the boxing world, and I use the term loosely, of a killer. He knocks out everybody he fights. In the last 5 years, I don't think anybody has gone more than 6 rounds with this guy. He's a talent of his own. Kovalov just defeated the great Bernard Hopkins about 3 months ago in the unification title fight, and he's considered now one of your top fighters, top 5, top 10 fighters as well. So we'll be looking for him. But what this has led to is the globalization of a sport that for many years there had been loosely the term world champion being used, but it was the United States. Now, when you say world champions, you have guys that are actually fighting around the world or that's coming from around the world. So I think that in 2015, starting with the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight, you're going to see some very interesting things happen in the sport of boxing. Television now, and I say television itself, but I mean broadcast television. NBC has entered into an agreement with Al Heyman. Al Heyman purchased somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 30 dates between NBC and CBS, Spike TV, as well as some others. That should, in itself, should be a good, allow fighters that normally are not seen on American television. It's going to allow the public for the first time in a long time to see names be built up, which will lead to them perhaps getting big numbers in pay-per-view, and maybe in the next 3 to 5 years we'll see a clamoring again of some great fighters. But Al Heyman deal, to talk a little bit more about that, a lot of these fighters have been under the stable of, a former stable rather, of a Golden Boy, and Al Heyman has served as their advisors. And a lot of people are saying that Heyman is really taking a big risk. But he just had his first match on March the 7th in Las Vegas. It actually, from a rating standpoint, it was a success. It broke the records of the current UFC fights that's been held on Fox and some of the networks for years now. They came in with just over 3.3 million viewers, and that just means that there will be others now. What's going to happen, we don't know, but it's going to take these type of efforts in order for the sport of boxing to grow, continue to grow in the United States, and to keep this globalization of the sport of boxing. Now, Top Rank and Golden Boy for years have been the big names in the sport. Of course, you had the Don King, and over the years, Don King Productions has done a tremendous job in bringing out the top fighters and some of the biggest productions in the history of the sport. The Rumble in the Jungle. I mean, who could ever forget about that? Young man, I was a part of that. With my brother George, of course, fighting the great Muhammad Ali. And if you ever had a night when you wanted your brother to win, but at the same time a guy that you admired so much in Muhammad, that's what I think the word is called a conundrum. I'm not sure to all those English people that are the specialists that are watching this show, but it was. And later on, of course, you had Mike Tyson, who was promoted by Don King, and he and Michael Spinks had one of the greatest fights in the history of the sport, even though it only lasted 2 rounds. But it generated millions of dollars, both in the city, for the city of Atlantic City, as well as the pay-per-view numbers. Then, of course, you had Holyfield and Tyson that generated some tremendous numbers. Lennox Lewis and Tyson generated tremendous numbers as well. So now, leading up to where Heyman has had his deals with the networks, I think the sport of boxing is going to continue to grow in the United States again. What would we like to see? Sometimes we want to see the best matchup. A lot of times, it's not about the best matchups. It's about the guy that can sell seats, or about the guy who can sell tickets, get people to come in. Madison Avenue, once they discover a fighter that they think of a significant magnitude, like a George Foreman, who over the years, even though in the 70s George was considered this knockout king, frightful, meaning guy that just had bad intentions all the way, reinvented in the 90s, and he came along and became the George Foreman that everybody loves. And as a person who participated in those endeavors, to see how the business of the sport grew then, George not only became a well-known name in the boxing ring, but also in the business world. Fortune 500 magazines did stories on him. The Disney channels had him on television. ABC did his own television show. These are the things that I think boxing is going to need. We're going to need those same kind of persons to come back into the sport again. And hopefully, Madison Avenue, the television networks, the sponsors that put monies up for these particular events will work with the promoters in continuing to see that this takes place. The sport of boxing is the business of boxing. So, in the coming weeks, Stay tuned here to the American Business Television Network, and we're going to bring you all of that information, interviews, and every other story that's a part of boxing. The sport of boxing, right here on the American Business Television Network. I'm your host, Roy Foreman. See you next time.